All right, Dan Wiederer is our guy. He also works for the Chicago Tribune. He does a masterful job on the Chicago Bears beat.
What are we looking at with the Rams offensively with Matt Stafford and company? What are your expectations for the Rams, the new look Rams?
Yeah, I mean, it's really trying to figure out what that new look looks like, right? Obviously, there was great excitement in L.A. and particularly in Sean McVay's office to go out and get a veteran who has talents that Jared Goff didn't have and has experience that Jared Goff didn't have and can open up parts of your offense. Now, Stafford in that first unit offense didn't play at all in August, and so we have no idea what any of it looks like, right? And so it's a little bit of a guessing game into what that's going to translate into on Sunday night. I think what you always see with the Rams is they use so much motion and play action and all these other things that really challenge a defense to be disciplined. You hear a lot about eye discipline this week at Hallis Hall, about guys on the back end, even guys up front, making sure that they see enough but don't see too much, locked in to slow this offense down. Stafford's a really good quarterback. He's in an offense now that should bring out the fullest potential that he has, and now I think everyone in L.A. wants to see what that looks like, and the Bears have the challenge of trying to slow it down.
Dan, you tweeted earlier, and we've discussed this on the show with you, about that you think the offense can be, it's the right way to paraphrase, markedly improved. Do you still feel that way?
Yes, and again, like I appreciate you asking that question because it requires context. And we're talking about an offense that was 29th 2 years ago, an offense that was 26th a year ago in total yards. And so you're looking about a jump that gets them into the teens, right? Like get out of the 20s, get yourself up to 19, 18, maybe 17. And that qualifies here in Chicago as significant improvement. You're still in the bottom half of the league, but you've made significant improvement. And I think this group can do that. I think they're going to be better at quarterback. I think the running game is going to be more established. And I, for one, don't have the panic that a lot of people in Chicago seem to have about the offensive line. Do I think it's a top-tier offensive line? Absolutely not. But am I as concerned as the outside world seems to be about how disastrous it is up front? I'm not.
You think about some of the young play callers that are around the NFL, the McVays, the Kyle Shanahans, Matt LaFleur, Mike McDaniel, all part of that Washington staff at some point. They're all Washington assistants. So where does Nagy fall, do you feel, as far as the play callers around the league? Because when I see Sean McVay, because he's been to the Super Bowl, been there and done that, I see McVay having a little bit of a leg up on Matt.
I mean, no question there. I mean, one of the questions that I asked Matt earlier this week is how he would define progress in 2021 for the entire team. And I think this is an important question for all of us, because it sort of circles back to job security and whether the belief from above and the guys leading the team is justified or whether it should be challenged. And Matt said one of his goals for this season is to make sure that they know what they have offensively much, much sooner. He said, by week 4 or 5 or 6, you should know who you are. You should know what you are as an offense. I think in the last couple of years, we've seen an offense that has gotten into December and still been talking about, man, once we find our identity. Well, it shouldn't take that long. And that's on the guy who oversees the offense. That's on the guy who calls the plays to make sure that he's catering the playbook to the strengths of the players he has. And right now, Matt is at best unproven, at worst unqualified, in some ways for the role that he has. And he's got to answer that question in 2021. I think a lot of this year for us on the outside who are going to be assessing this team, you have to figure out how high powered does the microscope need to be and what slides are you putting under there. One of the slides that needs to be in there every week is Matt Nagy as the offensive overseer, and what does that look like?
Well, you hear what he said there?
Yeah.
Dan, again, unproven street and unqualified boulevard, that's nowhere to be.
Nowhere.
Seriously.
Get on it, put on the GPS and find a way out, right?
Especially when you were hired because you were an offensive guru.
Correct, right. And so this is why there is this worry in the city. I want to bounce this off you guys because it's sort of alarming to me, but also just trying to figure it all out, because there's been this roller coaster in the city where obviously the January press conference was a disaster. When they signed Andy Dalton, it was not received well. I think we could find some audio of Kap on the days after the Dalton signing saying that this, Brain Trust wasn't qualified to run a Toys R Us or something to that extent. And then Justin Fields was drafted, and there was this, we'll find it. There was this surge of euphoria around the Fields pick, and now, because Fields isn't starting, it seems like that great sense of anxiety and dread has crept back into the city. There's an exciting week 1 opener on primetime against the Rams, and yet around the city, you sort of feel this worry that seems to be the predominant emotion. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
I wouldn't disagree with that, I think there are some people that are so anti-Dalton, so anti-Ryan Pace, so anti-Matt Nagy that no matter what they do, if it doesn't have Justin Fields starting a game, this team stinks, they're going to get crushed. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do. I believe that. Yeah, I believe that crowd is out there. And now I think it's probably trying to figure out a way around that to get a true sense of who this team is. And again, I think this kind of circles back to what would we all define as progress and improvement? Those were the buzzwords used by George and Ted back in the winter on what they needed to see in 2021. And for me, it's not necessarily a win total. It's not necessarily a return to the playoffs. For me, it's what does the development of Justin Fields look like throughout 2021? What does it look like at the end of 2021? And do you feel going into 2022 that he's your for sure long-term answer at the position? Everything else doesn't matter quite as much as that. And so it's a complicated season because if they go 7-10, but Fields looks like Herbert did a year ago or Burrow did a year ago, and you feel really good about solidifying that position, then does the 7-10 and the lack of a playoff appearance bother you as much?
Well, I just think that one of the things that Kap and I have talked about, Dan, is that you can see that there's a divide between Justin Fields fans and actual Bears fans. Because if you're a Bears fan, no matter who's under center, you should be rooting for the team. But you could just tell, I don't know if merchandise sales or just because it's new and fresh, but the idea that people are just pro Justin Fields and whatever happens with Nagy and the Bears, I don't think you can separate the two, but I think we've heard a lot of that this summer.
It's a combination of excitement and impatience. It's an understandable one because obviously Fields is who he is. He's very dynamic. He's got a ton of potential. I think the best news that this franchise has from the last 4 months is that this kid came in to Hallis Hall and has been everything that the Bears thought he would be and more. And so that's why I think some of the sort of swelling up of the angst and the worry is a little bit off base with what's actually happening there because your future franchise quarterback is making all the strides he needs to make. He's just not ready to start week one. And you should be really excited that he came in through OTAs, minicamp, training camp, preseason games, and checked all the boxes they asked him to check. And so that should be an exciting thing, and it shouldn't be something that leads you into the season feeling like, oh, my God, everything is off the rails again.
We're tight on time very quickly. Of the extensive injury list, are you concerned about Mack and Mooney and Eddie Goldman?
Well, Goldman, yeah. I mean, 100% on Goldman because he missed all last season. He missed time in camp with a back issue as well as a positive COVID test. And so you need that guy in the front of your defense. And if he's not able to go, you're reshuffling again. And you didn't think you'd have to be reshuffling there.
Hey, man, have a great day.
All right, guys.
Appreciate you. There he is, Dan Wiederer from the Chicago Tribune and ESPN 1000.